Hey there, it's Tom Corson-Knowles, #1 best-selling author of the Kindle Publishing Bible series and founder of TCK Publishing, and I want to welcome you today to the Publishing Profits Podcast, where our mission is to help you turn your writing into a profitable career. In today's show, we have a really amazing guest for you. His name is Steve Scott. Now, Steve is one of the authors that I love the most in the world. I mean, he's such an amazing person. We actually both started publishing our books on Kindle around the same time, about two and a half years ago. And the man is just so incredible. I mean, he's become one of the top 100 business and investing authors on Amazon in the Kindle section and in the overall store. Even though most of his books are just Kindle books, that he doesn't have very many paperback books, but he still sells more books overall than a lot of authors like Robert Kiyosaki on Amazon. I mean, the guy is just crushing it with the sales on Amazon. And he's just such an amazing, humble, helpful guy. I mean, out of all the authors I've met who have had that kind of success that quickly, I mean, he's just incredibly humble, incredibly gracious, and so giving. I mean, Steve and I are members of lots of different groups on Facebook and social media sites and forums for authors. And I see him every single day in those groups, posting 10, 20, 30 comments a day sometimes, answering people's questions, helping them out. You know, new writers, experienced writers, helping them out, showing them how it's done, how they can make their books better or do better marketing strategies, whatever it may be, whatever they need help with. He's just such a caring, giving person, and that's why I really wanted to have him on the show today because not only is he incredibly successful as a self-published author, and he's an incredible marketer, an incredible blogger. He's got a great blog as well where he earns a full-time income just from his blogging and affiliate marketing and stuff that he does online besides his books. But I wanted him on the show today because he's going to share with you just so much amazing information. So I'm not going to hold you up any longer. Just grab your notebook, grab your pen, get ready to take incredible notes because you are about to learn more in the next 45 minutes with Steve than you've probably learned in the last several months as an author. I mean, this guy's going to take your business to a next level. So let's go. Well, Steve, welcome to the show. Tell us about your background because I know, I just checking your books on Amazon. You've got 16 published books now. You're the #10 best-selling author in the business and investing section on Amazon, above authors like Dave Ramsey and John Maxwell and Robert Kiyosaki. And that's really why I wanted to have you on the show because you've had such incredible success. So tell us, how did you get to where you are today as a successful self-published author?
Basically, I probably started out similar to you and probably similar to a lot of people. Is I just thought you heard about the opportunity on Kindle, and I was just using it more as a traffic generation type of thing back to my blog. So I would say a little over a year ago, I published my first two books, and honestly, they didn't do so well. But what I noticed about the first book, once I started promoting the second book heavily through KDP Select, is that I just started getting a couple sales a day. And at the time, it didn't seem like a lot. It was like, I'm making $10 a day. But I went away on vacation. I thought, honestly, I think this time, I'd say last September, I thought if I actually sat down and really applied myself and tried to write a book every 3 or 4 weeks, what would actually come from it? And I really nowhere near thought I would have the success I have today. And not obviously a lot of it is a testament to the power of Amazon and their specific visibility tools. But I guess to really answer your question, it's just a matter of just sitting down and just banging out a good quality book every 3 or 4 weeks.
That's awesome. Your story really reminds me of my story because I published my first book like you, didn't think much of it, and then I didn't go on vacation, but I just ignored it for like a month or two and came back and checked my sales, and I had 15 sales, but to me 15 sales was a lot because I knew I didn't do much work for that. All I did was publish my book, didn't do any marketing, and that's like you. I made that decision. Well, I'm gonna just write as much as I can, get my message out there and see what happens. So how fast did that success progress for you from that point?
I would say it pretty much picked up with my third book, which is the one talking about ebook ideas, and that was just kind of what I was kind of nerding out. I'm trying to figure out how all this stuff works, so I just read up a lot of like blog posts and forum posts and stuff like that, and kind of reverse engineered a lot of stuff that I saw. But since then, that book started selling pretty well, 5 to 10 copies a day, and it was just pretty much forward momentum since then. So I would say within 2 months maybe, so maybe come November of 2012, I actually started seeing a couple thousand a month. But well, obviously, like I've tried replicating that in other markets, and I haven't quite seen those numbers. So I think a lot of it was also because I had a built-in audience from my blog that were pretty much supporting my books from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So let's talk about that. Tell us about your blog. How big is your audience, and how big of an effect do you think that really had?
I think definitely as Amazon moves forward and starts kind of, to be honest, diminishing the power of KDP Select and the free book runs, I think having an audience is becoming increasingly important, to the point where I would say a year or two from now, you really need an audience in order to just sell books on Amazon. Obviously, that's just my opinion. But as far as readership, I think at the time when I was publishing, I was getting an average of, I'm trying to remember when I first started out with the Kindle books. I say I was getting anywhere from neighborhood of 10 to 15,000 visitors a month. So I'd say a little over 1,000 visitors a day, and obviously some of which is traffic towards pages that really didn't matter as far as joining my email list. But I would say I definitely had at least 2,000 people on my email list that anytime I had something for free, they were willing to go download and potentially leave a review.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So that's how you were basically doing your marketing then? You had your blog with your traffic, you had your email list, and so you would launch a book, give it away for free on Kindle, and then just tell your email list, hey guys, if you like my stuff, you can get it for free in this book.
Yeah, like my marketing's definitely evolved since then, but that's kind of what kicked it off for me, just literally having a group of people that are willing to download my stuff, because they generally, if they like my blog post, they would have liked my books. So yeah, definitely having that group of people there for you really was, for me, a huge difference maker.
Awesome. Well, I know a lot of authors, especially maybe brand new authors, they might not have any kind of following or platform like that. But, when you look at it, 2,000 people on your email list, it's not huge. It's definitely significant, but it's not, there's a lot of people with much bigger email lists. So, what do you think, someone who's brand new with no email list, no following, do you think they can still have the kind of success that you've had?
I would say they could. It's just they're going to have to work a little bit more than I did. But I would say the least you should do is give away some sort of free email opt-in within every single book, and have that free email opt-in be directly related to whatever the topic is that you're basically selling. And that's where the advantage of doing, even though I don't think KDP Select worked as well as it once did, by giving away like a couple thousand copies of a book, you'll definitely start to build up an email list, and you can use each free run to build up that audience. And you don't necessarily have to get in the habit of blogging every single day or even every couple of days. I still believe you should have some sort of free content you give out. Like specifically, I'm thinking of that blog post that you wrote, that one with all the free all different free places to promote a Kindle offer. I actually still to this day refer people to that post. Stuff like that, where once in a while you come out with some really good piece of content that's not Kindle book related, just kind of keep contact with your email list, but you kind of use you use your Kindle books plus a platform like a blog or a podcast or a YouTube channel to slowly build up your audience.
Gotcha. So for you, what you're really doing is you're educating your audience, and you're coming up with kind of as many ways as possible to get in front of them on a regular basis, to make them like you, to make them want to buy books and consume more information from you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how do you go about doing that? What made you think at the beginning that, you're the expert in, internet marketing and things like that?
I didn't actually, to be perfectly honest. Like I said at the start, I was completely surprised by the number of books I sold. Like, it really has shocked me, and I'm being honest here. But I was, for many, many years before Kindle publishing, I have been self-employed through internet marketing, specifically affiliate marketing, full-time since 2005. So I definitely felt like I had value there. And obviously some of my techniques have changed over the years, but I've always managed to pretty much scratch and claw my way to a steady full-time income through internet marketing. So I feel like I have had enough experience that I can honestly write pretty much a wealth of Kindle books on different things that I've learned during this, I would say, last 7 or 8 years. But as far as at the time, I never considered myself remotely a Kindle expert, but somewhere along the line, I guess people started to look at me as one, but honestly, I'm just kind of shocked about that.
Yeah, it's kind of how I feel a lot as well. I feel like in a way I was really, really lucky, that I had so much success so fast like you did. But, on the other hand, I also worked really, really hard at it. And like you mentioned before, I also really knew a lot about what I was writing about.
Yeah.
I studied it for years and years and years. It's not just something that, all of a sudden one day I decided I'm going to be an expert on marketing. I've been reading and studying marketing for like 8 years.
Yeah, same here. I'd read all the books and stuff like that, and it's like that one quote about the overnight success that took 10 years. It's kind of like I've been doing it a lot. I just haven't really gotten a huge amount of recognition for it, and up until like starting publishing Kindle books.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Well, it's awesome. It's for me, I'm just really grateful for the success I've had, and it sounds like you are as well. I know you're a very humble guy. I remember our last interview it was almost amazing how humble you were. You didn't talk about how many books you were selling, and you were just really low key, but at the same time, you give so much great information and make things really clear. Do you think that's had some part of your success, that you don't brag about it? You don't kind of like beat your readers over the head with how much money you're making and things like that. Do you think that's important?
Oh, absolutely. There's actually the Fizzle show. I know it's Corbett Barr and two other guys. I feel bad for forgetting their names. Caleb Wojcik and I forget the third. Anyway, they have this. They had this episode the other day I was listening to about being a douchebag in internet marketing. I guess you can edit out if that's a curse word, but basically their point was, which is really, I completely agree, that a lot of that particular space, internet marketing, is filled with people that flash Lamborghini shots and mansions, and they basically try to like talk about how much bank they make. And I think if you go the opposite direction, you act like a normal person would, and present it as an actual viable way to replace your job instead of like, look how much money I'm making. People will respect that. And I think just by being an honest person, that's how you can also build an audience.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what readers want, and I think that's one of the reasons the ebook revolution is happening so fast, is because readers aren't interested in what a traditional publisher thinks is a good book or a good author. They're interested in like someone who's authentic and real and goes straight to the point and gives them in the nonfiction world just information that they really want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So, how do you come up with all these book ideas? I mean, 16 books, that's a lot for anyone. I mean, how do you, come up with the ideas? How do you know ahead of time whether or not your book idea is ever even actually going to be bought by anyone?
At first, I honestly kind of followed maybe what you and I have both suggested, is just find out what the market's buying and just kind of create, I guess, let me step back a bit. I guess the first one that actually really started taking off was the ebook ideas book. That's the one that actually started selling pretty well, and that was my third book. And really, I was just looking at what sold, and I saw, to be honest, I saw the Kindle publishing was selling well, but at the time I had zero experience in it. But what I also did have experience was kind of nerding out and figuring out what actually ideas would sell. So I didn't actually try to come out as an absolute Kindle authority. I just tried to come out with a book that explained one step of the process really well. And that's kind of been my model since then, is not try to answer every single question about internet marketing. Instead, just try to cover one small little subsect of the actual business model. Like, for instance, I've had books now on like email marketing, outsourcing, that sort of thing, or just find one problem and try to do my best to solve that one specific problem. Now, to answer your other question, sometimes I'm pretty sure a book will sell, and sometimes I think it'll actually not sell well at all, but I just write it because I think it's important for people to learn. So it's kind of I kind of go back and forth. One book will be one I think will sell well, and then I'll come back with one that might not sell, but I think it's still important. So I try to do one after the other, try to kind of mix it up a bit.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So what I hear then is you're really writing what you're passionate about writing about, but you also do the market research and make sure that this isn't just some random topic, but that people are actually buying this kind of information. Yeah,
that basically sums it up best. And I'll be honest, sometimes I completely fall flat on my face. Like, I have a whole series of children's books that they did well for a while, and they've pretty much fallen off the face of the earth as far as sales. And I think that goes back to my previous conversation about having a whole like author platform, because I don't have with that one. So I've definitely had my strikeouts with publishing books.
Gotcha. Well, it's good to know that you're not, not everything you touch turns to gold. And no. Like you said, it's a process, and, it's great to have an audience. And if not, then you got to work really hard to build that audience.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, what are well, give me an example of one of your books, though, because I'm not sure, people listening to this podcast, they've probably never heard of you, even though you're selling so many books. Give me an example of one of your books, how you structured it. What is the length of your book, typical book? and how do you go about, how do you know when it's done?
Okay, yeah, that might take a little time. I guess I'll start with the actual word count. I'm at the point now, I think I've written otherwise in the past, but I'm at the point now where I like to see about 15 to 20,000 words for any book that I sell between $2.99 and up. And I'm actually working on a 99-cent book now, and that's anything under 10,000 words. So as far as ideas for it, I tend to write stuff that I think is just important, some stuff that people I think should learn. And then from there, I just basically take a couple pieces of paper, write down any possible topic and related thought that I could think of about that subject. So I'll spend about an hour doing that, just basically a huge brain dump onto a piece of paper. Then I take a bunch of index cards, and might get a little bit technical, but basically take index cards, I write down all the ideas and try to sort them out in a logical format, and that's basically my rough outline. Then I actually do like a typed outline, and then from there I'll type basically a rough draft, but it's almost what I call stream of consciousness writing, where I'll just write. I almost use the outline as like a bullet point of what to say next. So basically below, as I'm writing, I have the next prompt below it, and I'm constantly writing and then deleting lines as I go to the point where I have a very finished book. And for the most part, it works out to be 15 to 20,000 words. I tend to write about 8 to 10 chapters, and that usually works out to be about around that word count. But and then from there, it's all like, stuff that everyone probably knows about: polishing, getting an editor, that sort of thing. But I do try to hit those specific word mark, but excuse me. But if it goes above or below it, I don't really stress out as much, as long as I know I'm providing a lot of value for the actual word count.
Gotcha. So, you wrote a book called Outsourcing Mastery, and you just mentioned, your freelancers and your cover designers and so forth. How did you go about building your team of freelancers? Because, as a self-published author, you don't have a publisher behind you, giving you all these contacts and resources. You have to kind of build that team yourself. So how did you do that?
I would say one person at a time, and the kind of more I get into Kindle publishing, the more I realize that really the cover design is one of the most important things, and that was basically the first person I hired. And I've worked with cover designers before, and I basically, through the kind of process I describe in Outsourcing Mastering, but basically I just go through this really lengthy process of just talking to everyone that excuse me, I'm having a frog in my throat. Give me 1 second. Basically, I do you post something on Elance, and I have this whole lengthy description of what I need. And if I'm starting off with a new project I haven't done before, I provide examples of what other people have and what I like. And then from there, I kind of just start a vetting process by interacting with each person, seeing specifically examples of what they've done in the past. And I did that for a long time, and I eventually stumbled across the guy Kyle that I use for my e-cover design, and he's been great ever since. But I guess from there, that's the cover guy, and I pretty much followed the same process for an editor as far as like going through a bunch of people. I actually tested out 3 different editors on the same book just to see which one was better. And the one that I worked with surprisingly was the cheapest, which that's to this day it mystifies me. But he's been great ever since, and actually what I have him do now is every time I write a book, I have him send me like a list of all the things I do wrong on a recurring basis. Like for instance, like starting a paragraph with so, or starting a sentence with so, it's like a big obstacle. I can't figure out how to do that right. But anyway, the point is like he's always kind of helping me refine my writing process and hopefully help me become a better writer. And pretty much the same process from there is I'm actually trying to find a really good ebook writer. So eventually, I won't do this for my Steve Scott books, but maybe in some other niches, I would like to have someone who basically, I send them a really good outline and they just write the book for me. And that's kind of the next step I'd like to evolve it into. I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet perfectly, but it's kind of something I've been tinkering with on the side.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I love what you mentioned about your editor, that, not just do you have him or her edit your books, but you get feedback every time.
Yeah.
And, you ask them for that feedback.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be the first to say that I'm not the greatest writer, but I would like to think that maybe in a year or two I'll be decent at least. I guess I'm always a little bit too self-critical, but I always want to make sure I'm actually having something that's grammatically correct and free from errors, to be honest.
That's awesome. That's awesome, because I think, a lot of people, and especially internet marketers, I mean, a lot of them kind of get a bad rap, but, they don't have that I guess the determination that you have, and that really focus on growing. I can tell that with everything you do, you're always trying to get better. You're having your editor give you feedback every time. You're always trying to get better and better and better at what you're doing. And I think, it's one of the reasons why you've had so much success is because, your readers understand that, each book is getting better and better for you. It's not like, you had some really great book at the beginning and then you just published 15 other crappy books because you knew you could make some money from it. It's just the exact opposite, really.
Yeah, I would think that's a lesson for anyone to learn is you definitely want to try refining and improving your process, because it's really as easy as become good at something. It's just as easy to fall off the face of the earth and basically make yourself look like a fool if you're just trying to follow the quick buck.
So how do you avoid that then? Because, with all the books you're selling and all the money you're making, wouldn't it just be easy to just, cut corners or, try something new just because you knew you could make money from it?
I guess so, and I guess that's later on what I'm actually probably going to come out and say is I'm going to probably write 2 more books as Steve Scott, and then I'm going to take a bit of a break because I actually do want to go back, and I'm actually have this whole side project that's really not related to this conversation, but basically a side project where I'm starting a whole brand new website, a whole new brand, and I'm going to use that as kind of a pretty much a live case study for the next year and build that up basically by not leveraging what I currently have. And I guess the point is I want to refine and improve my internet marketing skills so I can maybe in the future come back and write better books then. But I guess the point is you always want to constantly challenge yourself and actually not just, I guess, put the reader's best interests at heart. If you know that if you're at the point where you're writing a book just to publish something that makes money, then you're definitely on the wrong track. You want to make sure that you're actually giving the best possible information that you can.
Well, you said something else that's really fascinating to me is that, you're going to write 2 more books and then you're going to go focus on becoming an even better internet marketer. And one of the things that I've noticed with a lot of authors, and especially really successful authors, is that they're not just authors. It's not like all they do is they sit home and they write books, for an hour a day and then, go play on the beach all day. They've got other either hobbies or professional interests that keep them really busy and really focused, and they're always trying to improve. And, I can see that with you, and I think that's a really big key to success is that, you're not just someone who only writes. You've got, and it's not that only writing is a bad thing, but it's that you've got these other hobbies, these other passions, these other interests that really keep you busy and keep you focused. And writing is kind of, for nonfiction authors at least, is just kind of a way to help people who have come before you, really.
Yeah, exactly. You're more just explaining about what you've done in the past and try to use that to help out their specific problem.
That's awesome. So, how have you become so productive? 16 books in, about a year?
It's actually, it's going to sound like bragging, but I'd say probably 33 in the last year, because there's a bunch of the other ones that are not I've in it because it's under pen names. I kind of just keep on the down low. But yeah, I would say just the kind of the do the work Stephen Pressfield attitude of just every morning you get up and you write for 2 hours before you do anything else in your day. And I'm not quite good at doing this when I'm on vacation or the weekends, but I try to at least 5 days a week write for at least 2 to 3 hours a day. And that's like I don't even open up email or look at anything else until it's 11 or 12 o'clock my time. It's just more like a workmanship attitude. You just put in the effort on a daily basis.
Exactly. And that's 2 to 3 hours of writing, but you're not you're actually physically typing on the keyboard, right? You're not sitting there thinking about writing.
Oh yeah, that's purely writing. And actually, to get weird and complicated, I actually use a technique called the Pomodoro Technique, where it's basically you do 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, and sometimes I'll do like 2 Pomodoros back to back, then take 5 minutes off, and then I'll do two more. So it's basically you're working, but you have that. Literally, I have a cell phone that's ticking away right in front of me, showing me that I have to be paying attention to exactly what I'm doing, and that avoids me checking stats going on Facebook or just generally goofing off.
Gotcha. So you use that Pomodoro technique to really stay focused and make sure that you're actually being productive when you're writing and you're not just daydreaming, something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. So what else? Are there any other productivity secrets or strategies to writing, or is it really just that simple?
It's not simple at all. I would say just putting the work. the one breakthrough that I would say for me was the one we already kind of touched upon, is just hiring an editor, having someone that kind of being a second pair of eyes to look at your work and basically tell you when something's not kosher. Like you almost need the kind of brutal feedback. And I would say another thing that's helped me is Tom Ewer of Leaving Work Behind. I'm in kind of a small mastermind where he and I just get on a call every single week, and we set specific, this is what I'm going to do type of outcomes. And every time, if I'm not, like for instance, I blew my accountability for this week because I wanted to have the book to my editor by today, and I didn't, and he definitely got on me for not doing that. And you almost need someone else to kind of keep you in check and make sure you're staying on task. And maybe for the listeners, that you might not be comfortable with doing it with someone online, but a spouse or a friend could be just as good.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So in addition to your team of editors and designers and so forth, you've got kind of this mentorship team, this person who, you tell them, I'm going to do this week, these are my goals, and if you don't reach those goals, then they basically hold you accountable and say, hey, look, you've got to step up your game and improve.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I don't care how good you are, someone's always better and someone's always trying to beat you, so you definitely want to keep pushing yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like Tiger Woods. I mean, the guy's like the best golfer in the world, and he's got like 6 coaches.
Yeah.
And none of his coaches are as good of a golfer as he is.
But they definitely keep him in check, I imagine.
Exactly. So it's really more about, I think, the psychology of it than, the hands-on skills, because, there's a lot of people who are really good writers. I mean, like, for example, I always use this as an example as editors. Like, my editor is a much better writer than I am.
Yeah.
Right? But she doesn't write as many books as I do. And I think the difference is psychological. It's not the skills. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'll pimp your book a bit, but I really did find that one. Forgive me for the titles. The 6-Figure Pillars. What the hell?
Secrets of the 6-Figure Author.
Yeah, I actually really like that for the simple fact that it really emphasized the day-to-day putting in the work type of mentality that really is required to be good at writing. So, exactly. So listeners, definitely pick that up. I like that one a lot.
Oh, thank you. I didn't ask you to plug it, but thank you. I think you're right. I mean, I think that's true, is that, it's better to write like 1 or 2 hours a day than, to spend like a month writing like 8 hours a day and then to stop writing for a year.
Oh, yeah.
It's that consistency is really key, because, then you're not just writing for an hour a day when you write for an hour a day, because the whole rest of the day you're thinking about what you wrote, and you're kind of like, at least I am, and in my head I'm kind of editing things and coming up with new ideas. Is that the way that you process ideas and process books as well?
Yeah, I actually, no, definitely. I think for me a lot of it, and I just remembered this, is I also exercise at least 1 hour a day, and during my runs and during my walks or whatnot, I'm always thinking about what I just wrote or what I would like to write in the future. And when I come back from a run, I'll usually have at least 2 or 3 ideas that I immediately write down or at the very least put into a kind of storybook idea type thing, where I forgot what people call like an idea garden or whatnot, but like type books that you can write in the future. I'm always coming up with new ideas, and that's kind of going back to a question you asked a while ago, which is where I get my ideas. A lot of it's just connecting one thought to another thought during a run.
Yeah, but you're not just connecting the thoughts when you're running. You go home, you write them down in your journal, or you record them, so you don't just lose those ideas. You make sure you keep all your ideas.
Yeah, and every time I'm like, all right, what the heck do I write next? I just open that up, and I'm like, oh, that was a good idea from 2 months ago.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, that's exactly the process that I've used, and it's worked incredibly well. And I remember when I first started writing, I wasn't using that process at all, and it was so much harder.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like you had to struggle. You would look at like a blank piece of paper, like, what do I write now? But then you go to your list of ideas and you're like, I came up with this amazing idea 4 months ago, and I just put that in, and off you go.
Yeah, I would say to a certain degree, you almost never want to just have like a blank piece of paper. You always want to use the stuff that you've come up before to kind of seed any type of writing that you do. If you're just open up a document and say, okay, right, what do I write now? You've already kind of missed the point. You want to have like an outline. You want to have constantly be coming up with ideas that you write down somewhere that you immediately implement into whatever you're doing next.
Exactly. And I think what you're probably doing, Steve, is what you might not have said yet, is you're really planning out your book ahead of time. I mean, you spend a lot of time thinking about your ideas, and you organize them ahead with the flashcards, and it's only after you've done all that initial work that you actually sit down and write.
Yeah, I would say I spend at least 5 hours before I even open up the Word document. So there's a lot of planning that's involved with it.
That's great. So it's not, you're not just like, well, I have an idea for a book, I'm going to sit down, open up a Word document and start writing. You really do all of the mental work ahead of time. And then when you sit down writing, it's so easy because you've already done all the hard work. You've already got all the ideas there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Steve, tell us about some of the challenges you've had because, the story, the way you tell it, it sounds simple, it sounds easy. But I know from myself personally, it's not been an easy journey at all. What about for you? I mean, has it all been easy, or have there been some really big struggles and challenges that you've had to overcome along the way?
I would say there's been two. One of them I'm sure everyone can relate to is basically negative feedback, and like what we both have written in the past and what other people really do recommend is negative feedback is just part of the game. But I guess for me the challenge is not letting negative feedback like affect my confidence. If I know I'm doing it, if I'm doing as good of a job as possible, to not let them like prevent me from writing something that I really care about. I guess specifically there's been like for me two types of negative feedback. The one's good, the one that was like basically pointing out that hey, you need to get your books edited and grammar checked, and that one I believe is the best kind of negative feedback. And the other ones are just basically saying that I'm a horrible person, and I don't know, like I won't elaborate, but basically the really kind of nasty like troll like negative feedback, and that it's hard not to let you affect that the way that you write in the future. At least for me, that was a challenge, and even today, it's still a challenge. And I just have I try my hardest to ignore it, but to a certain degree, there always is that little voice in the back of your head that kind of affects the way you think sometimes. So, and I would say the second challenge is basically more of from a sales standpoint is when you see a book that sells really well and then for no rhyme or reason it just drops off the charts. So say it was selling really well for 3 months and then like after that it's just really no one's picking up. And I guess trying to figure out how to actually prevent that or increase those sales. That's more of a kind of marketing type of trying to figure things out type of standpoint. But I definitely have experienced challenges all along the way, and there's some things I don't do well, like specifically like physical books or Create Space or publishing on other platforms. I do neither, and I know for a fact that I'm basically missing out on the huge opportunities there. So I'm definitely making my fair share of mistakes along the way.
Gotcha. So you have made a lot of mistakes, and the negative feedback was really hard for you. I mean, it's hard for me too. Like you said, it's when someone just leaves a really negative review that doesn't really have any helpful information. It's not like they're saying, you need to work on your grammar, or you need to explain these points more. They're just basically attacking your character.
Yeah.
That is hard, and it's hard too because you can have a book with 150 5-star reviews, and it's got like one-star review of this person attacking your character, and that can be hard to swallow sometimes. But I think you've got to focus on it. If it's just 1 out of 150, then you've got to kind of put it in perspective and understand that if thousands of people are buying your books, there's always going to be some percentage that are unhappy. I mean, you look at books like Harry Potter; it's like got like 91-star reviews. So you're in good company when you get a bad review.
Oh yeah, I know, and I do tend to take it like with a logical head, but sometimes it's like it catches you in the wrong day in the wrong mood, like, and it kind of like you get bummed out for like an hour or so, and then you're like, oh, what am I doing? And then you realize, oh wait, people actually do like this stuff. So it's either get back on the horse, but it's not always like sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes people will definitely, like you said, attack your character, basically accuse you of ripping people off, which is literally, I run my entire business to not do that to people. And when people say that, it kind of stings a little.
Well, but I mean, how do you separate that? Because sometimes I've noticed for me, I've gotten reviews that were kind of both. I mean, they were really negative and maybe attacking my character, but at the same time, sometimes they had, an idea or a tip there that could really make my writing and my book that much better. How do you kind of separate that emotion from the equation and say, I'm going to use that information and really improve my craft?
I would say the stuff is actually helpful. I do appreciate, and even if it's a 1-star, but if it's just an attack, I just ignore it. I don't even, I know some people really, like, they try to respond to every one of them, and I typically, the only ones I respond to are the ones that I find are helpful. Otherwise, I just ignore it, or they'll never hear from me. I don't want to spend my time in the basement dealing with trolls.
But I mean, how do you use, the somewhat helpful criticism to improve your stuff? I mean,
Oh, okay.
because a lot of times, like I'll get emails from readers that say, you should do this with your book and do that with your book, and a lot of times, maybe it's a good idea, but it's not right for the book. So I mean, how do you decide whether or not the information that they're telling you is something that you really ought to change, or whether you should just leave it as it is and kind of put that information on the back burner?
Oh, okay. I would say if it's an actual some small thing that I did wrong with my book, or I didn't like, for instance, I had said email chimp instead of MailChimp in one of my books, and I just totally got the name wrong. Like, obviously, like that's easy to do, and that's the beauty of Kindle publishing, where you just update it. But if it's some glaring thing that they don't like, I'll thank them for the email, but I generally won't take action on it. But if it actually seeds a potential book idea, I'll generally thank them and offer them a free copy of the one that I plan on writing in the future. And I've actually I got that a lot about people. I got a couple of emails like from people from previous books about how there wasn't much explanation about email marketing, so that's actually why I went out and wrote that whole book about it. And everyone who wrote to me, I sent them a free copy. Stuff like that. I do try to listen to people. I try to change existing books where I can, and if it's something that's really like major, I try to at least have it be a section or an entire book that I plan on writing in the future, or at the very least a blog post. Like I'm starting to kind of get more back into blogging again. At least try to incorporate that into some sort of free lesson that I could send to anyone on my email newsletter.
Yeah, that's a brilliant strategy. I think that's really, really brilliant. And you sound to me kind of like an old school blogger. I mean, like the bloggers who made it really big, like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, who are basically creating great content. And then they had all these followers, and their followers were saying, hey, I want to learn more about this. And they would go out and research that information and write a big blog post on it. And you're kind of doing that same thing, except you're writing books instead of blog posts.
Yeah, exactly. And that actually is kind of that project I briefly mentioned. But basically, I think one of the ways that, like, one of the beauties of now Kindle publishing is, as bloggers, you can actually have a legitimate way of making money with your words without creating massive information products, or basically like pimping yourself out for affiliate products and stuff like that. You can actually write legitimate stuff, charge a few bucks, and you can develop readers that way. And it's not just about blogging, it's not just about Kindle publishing, it's actually about building a whole like brand around kind of selling low end type of stuff that actually helps people.
Gotcha. So what do you mean by low end? I mean, what is your general price point for your books?
And mine are, I've looked at the competition, I guess you as well. Mine are definitely underpriced. They're about $2.99 a piece. I guess my feelings on that is I like $2.99 because it's the start of the 70% commission that, 70% royalty that Amazon provides. But the idea there is I'm not really too worried about making one sale. I'm more concerned about making 4 or 5 sales from the same person. And I feel if I price it at the point where I make the most amount of money and it's the cheapest for them, that ultimately that one book purchase will lead into a bunch more down the road. And I think so far that seems to be working. I think that's why I have a pretty steady amount of sales on pretty much a daily basis. Whereas I see a lot of books are sold at like $7, $8, $9, $10. You're not going to get too many people that buy multiple books of yours if you do it that way. And that
yeah, because it adds up fast.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, if you've got 20 books at $10 a piece, it's $200.
And with all that said, I'm kind of almost ready to pull the trigger to increase the price on 1 or 2 of my books. Like my marketing one is pretty lengthy, and I think it's pretty good, so I might bump that up to $4.99. But for now, I actually kind of like the fact I know that people are buying multiple copies of different books.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, the way you say it doesn't sound like you're, this brilliant business guy who's trying to take advantage of people. It just sounds like you're just this down-to-earth guy who's like, I got this message, I want to help people. I've been earning a full-time income online for like 7, 8 years now, and I just want to give back and teach people as cheaply as I can.
I think so, but I guess that goes also back to the whole conversation, whereas we're in an industry with people that pitch you the $997 product and stuff that has low value to it. And I think if you do something differently, provide the same value at a low cost, but you're I guess maybe sending more products out into the world, but you're not charging as much for each individual product. I think that's an excellent way to stand out.
For sure, for sure. I mean, like your book, like 61 Ways to Sell More Nonfiction Books. Like I read that book and I, and I knew almost everything in it, I did learn some new stuff, which was really awesome. But if I had read that book when I first started publishing Kindle books, like that would have been worth a $1,000 course for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks a lot. I tried to write a really good book with that one. And actually, I'm trying to writing something now. It's a little bit of an update to that. But yeah, it's you try to give as much value as you can, and you don't really have to rip people off in order to make a decent living. You don't have to try to convince them that you're to make millions of dollars online, just as long as you act humble and present a good version of yourself.
So, I mean, how do you do your research for like a book like that? I mean, let's for any of your books. I mean, how do you do the research? To come up with all the information and all the facts that you need for that book and all the tips and ideas.
I'm gonna have a really bad non-answer. I don't really do research. I just kind of write what I already know. I do to a certain degree. I always try to put a lot of helpful links in it to other people helpful links to websites that aren't my own. So it's people feel like they're actually getting like helpful information, or not just getting hit by an affiliate offer or something like that. So I do some research to the degree where I try to find good resources of that particular topic I'm talking about. But for the most part, I just try to use my own experiences. With all that said, I am moving to the kind of more habits market where I'm not completely comfortable with the material. So I definitely try to write what I know about, but also I do try to research a topic if I'm unsure about. And that actually has lengthened my kind of preparation to the outline by a couple hours. So I generally spend like 8 to 10 hours on my outline before I actually put a written word down.
Gotcha. So I mean, so what you're saying is really you started out, you're writing books that you really are an expert on because you've done it before, like with outsourcing. I mean, you've got this whole team of freelancers that you work with, so it's pretty easy for you to just say, hey, this is the process I went through. Um, I
Yeah.
think that's important. I think it's important that you're not just making stuff up. Like I see a lot of people out there who try to write a book or a blog post or a product, and they've never really done it before.
Yeah.
They're not even an expert on it.
And I would think that that really is also a key to, especially if you're writing nonfiction. You definitely want to write about something you at least like or know something about. If you're just basically ripping other people's stuff off, that will be a business model that won't last very long.
So, what's in the future for you? I mean, what's next for Steve Scott?
Uh, that's a good question. I am writing kind of a 99-cent book about like basically, I'll be honest, a strategy I kind of I'll be nice, borrowed from you, the idea of launching a book at 99 cents instead of using the free book model like most people have had. And actually, I achieved a lot of success from that, from my outsourcing book, just by following kind of your lead. So thank you. So basically, I'm kind of writing a short kind of 99-cent kind of summary of the difference between the free and the 99-cent model, and that should be done by this time next week. So I guess what's today? I don't know, like the 14th of August. Then I would say a couple weeks after that, I'm going to write. Actually have a rough draft for another book that I'll write up for Steve Scott. But pretty much besides those two things, I'm really devoting myself to this, what I call the Authority Internet Business Project, and that's basically how to combine blogging, Kindle books, information products, affiliate marketing, apps. All basically, you build an online presence, and you can monetize and build an audience through a bunch of different ways. And that's the actual market I'm in. It's the habits market. So I haven't. I think I've only made like less than $1,000 with this website so far. But basically, I hope that this time next year it will actually be a significant website. It makes a significant amount of money. It can actually show people from the beginning how I did it. So it's going to be one of these long projects, but that's basically what I'm going to be focusing on for pretty much all of 2013 and maybe half of 2014.
That's awesome. Well, I think it sounds like you told me about that project a little while ago, and it sounds like something that's definitely worthwhile. You're because, like you mentioned before, there's so much disbelief, I think, from a lot of consumers that still don't understand how to make money online legitimately. And I think that's really important that you're taking like basically 2 years of your life to kind of prove that you can start from scratch, and with some simple strategies and some simple ideas, you can really create a successful business online.
Yeah, it's kind of a comparison if you're familiar with internet marketing. A lot of people talk about niche sites, and to this day, I still believe that building authority sites is a way better long-term strategy. And I kind of use this to kind of be a comparison to what you can do if you're willing to work hard on one thing for over a year.
Gotcha. So can you explain that for people who might not know the difference between a niche site and an authority site?
Oh yeah, I guess I'll give you the 30-second pitch. But basically, a niche site is you find a keyword. Let's just say I'm looking at my browser, Kindle Fire, for example. So you build Kindle Fire HD. So you build a website around the keyword Kindle Fire HD. You find a couple of related keywords, and the idea there is you're taking advantage of Google traffic to get people to come to your website. Then you promote either an Amazon associate product. So basically, you would have I would say, okay, let's say Kindle Fire HD review. That would be a great keyword. And then you get people to your website, you promote the Kindle Fire, and they go buy through their Amazon associate link, and you make money through affiliate marketing. The reason I don't particularly recommend that strategy is because you're basically putting all your eggs in the Google basket, which is really Google in general. It's just really a nightmare because they always change the rules, and really the rules are never in favor of the small guy. I guess the point is behind an authority site is you get traffic and income from a variety of sources, and you don't really necessarily worry about making money in the next few months, but your long-term strategy is, I guess, more you have a larger portfolio of different ways that you're getting traffic and people that know about your site, and you can build an audience. So let's say you can build an audience from Kindle that ultimately will download your apps, they'll ultimately go buy your information product, they'll join your email list. And I guess over time, the idea there is you find what that one person said, your 1,000 true fans, and you just use it through an online presence.
Absolutely. I think that's huge, and that's a really important point. And I think there's a really big connection there between building an authority website versus a niche website, and building your author brand as an authority brand versus a niche brand. And I see a lot of new authors, they'll write like a book on nutrition, and then like a book on business, and then like a book on gardening, and then like a romance novel, and they're all over the place, and they're doing this little like niche business, and they think they're going to make a lot of money that way, but you're not. You're going to make the money by becoming an authority in your field. Write 5 books about business. Then you'll make some serious money because you'll have some serious value to offer to your market.
Yeah, definitely. I always bang my head against the wall when I see people doing that, because it's frustrating because they wonder why they're not doing well. It's like, well, you're just writing about anything that you can think of. It's like, I think really a lot of the reason I sell books is because I get a person to buy one thing and they buy a couple more, and that's really, it's not a fancy strategy, but it seems to work in most niches.
Yeah, because someone who buys your book on outsourcing, they're probably going to want to buy your book on blogging because they're so closely linked.
Yeah, definitely. Or like using the health market, like if you're a runner, there's probably 20 different books you could write about running, like marathoning, stretching. Trying to think of what I do. Marathon training, stretching, training for a 5K, training for a 10K, how to not get injured. That sort of like, you can take one topic and just write like countless books and each solve a specific problem.
Yeah, I think that really is the key. I think you've summed it up right there, that you want to become an authority. Whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, you want to become an authority in your field. And you got to do that by creating great content consistently. It's not enough to just have one good blog post on your website or just one good book. You've got to have multiple pieces out there. And like you said, you've got to solve multiple problems for the reader. Or in the case of like a fiction author, you've got to have multiple stories to entertain the reader.
Yeah, and if they like one, they'll typically like another.
Well, it sounds so simple. Is it really just that simple? Is that what it's really about?
It's one of those things that sounds simple, but it's hard for the execution, because you really do have to put forth, a couple hours a day, and like for people that work full time, that requires a serious rechanging your schedule. Like you'll have to maybe give up TV or spend less time with your family. Like you have to make sacrifices. But yeah, if you're willing to put forward a couple hours a day towards it, and you're willing to obviously learn from things that work, learn from things that don't work, test different things. Like I think it's a business model that if you're willing to put forth a lot of effort on a daily basis, you can have success with it.
Definitely, I agree for sure. Well, when you talk about making sacrifices, personally, I hate to make sacrifices unless I really know it's going to be worth it.
Yeah.
So tell us, give us some more insight into your life. What has the success with Kindle allowed you to do? How has it changed your lifestyle? And, if I'm a brand new author, who's not making anything from my writing, how would my life change if I had the kind of success that you've had?
Oh man, I'm going to give a boring answer. Saving up for a house. That's I just spent a month in Greece, so I guess that sounds all like, those shots that people put on their internet marketing website about their awesome life. Yeah, I did just spend a month in Greece and basically didn't work the entire time, and the entire vacation was paid for by a month's worth of Kindle sales, so that was kind of nice. But otherwise, I try to structure my life like everyone else that puts in a 9 to 5 job. I get up every day. I get up at 7:30. I put forth a couple hours of work. Then I do kind of the other projects and stuff I work on for my business. And at night I go for walks with my girlfriend. We eat dinner together and I watch TV. Like, it sounds really simplistic, but I guess basically any money that I make from it, I just been squirreling away for a house because I live in New Jersey and the house prices here are just ridiculous. So I'm trying to not have to get into the rat race of having a 30-year mortgage. I'd rather pay off a huge chunk of it right away and not have to put myself in a 30-year type of situation where I have to worry about a payment every single month. But I guess beforehand I was supporting myself through in-app marketing, so I guess my lifestyle hasn't quite changed that much. But I would say definitely in a year from now, I should be able to afford a nice house. So I guess that's the simplest answer I can give.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, I think it's really like the American dream, man.
Yeah.
To come from nothing and to have, a business that supports the life that you really want to live, whether that's taking a vacation for a month in Greece or, just spending time with your girlfriend or, spending time, building the business of your dreams, like whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't give an awesome answer. Like I now fly helicopters and drive in Lamborghinis, but I think that's what most people want, just be happy with their lives and not have to have the hassle of having a boss that they hate or a job that they hate.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, that's it might not be the flashiest answer in the world, but it's inspiring to me, to see someone who's living their dreams, who's passionate about what they do, and who's, become really successful by writing. I think, ideas and words are, the most powerful thing we have to change our own life and to change other people's lives. And, it's awesome to see someone like you who's really using that power so much to help people and, who's also really benefit from it. And, you live a great life yourself.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for being on the show, Steve. I really appreciate it. And I know you shared a wealth of information with people, and, I highly recommend, anyone listening right now, check out Steve's books if you want to learn more about publishing on Kindle, because he shares a wealth of information in there for sure.
Well, thanks for having me on, Tom.
Yeah, all right, man. Well, have a fantastic day, and we'll have to come back soon and share some more with us.
Definitely.
Hey there, it's Tom Corson-Knowles again. I hope you loved the show today with Steve Scott. If you'd like to connect with Steve or learn more about him, check out his site, stevescottsite.com. If you want to get all the latest episodes and news about the Publishing Profits Podcast show, join us at publishingprofitspodcast.com. And please make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes. Leave us a review. We would love to hear what you think. Is there anything we can do to improve? Anything you really loved about the show? Any particular guest that you loved or a guest that you would recommend for the show? We would love to hear about it. Please leave us a review on iTunes. And stay tuned for next week's show. We're going to have a special mystery guest for you who's going to share with you really the entire story of going from just someone who wanted to write books and had a couple unpublished manuscripts, couldn't get published in the traditional industry through agents and the traditional publishers, and decided to self-publish, went on to create a very profitable career as a self-published author. And you're going to learn about that entire story next week's show. All right? See you then. Take care.